Hello everybody. Hopefully you can see me and hear me, although you'll only see me briefly because of my new lamp setup and the camera and all the other things. If I sit where I actually paint, there's really no point to this face camera anymore. So I'm going to turn it off and come over here and put the light on. Let's see, it looks like Quindy can hear me. Green users are here. Daka Flocka Flame. Quindy is sharing links to my stuff. I'll try to remember to mention this again later in the show, but last week I was working on, how to use colorful metallic paints. I painted these as an example. These were based on, hey, Reaper John, based on the, composed with the ReaperCon 2023 swag bag triad, which were all beautiful metallics. Last week they looked like they were out of stock, and I had not checked my phone for messages right before I ended the stream because Ron had gotten back to me. They've inventoried the remaining stock, and those are now on the website. If you go to the main site, you'll see something about ReaperCon 2023. Click that banner, and it will take you to where you can find these paints. But this is it. This is the last of them that there are. So if you are in love with these colors, and I think that Raven Feather came out pretty cool. I mean, I like the Ghost Vein too. I think I needed a larger canvas. The other time I did this, I had a wizard with like a big flowy cloak, and I think it showed off the shaded metallic approach a little better. I'm not unhappy with her. I just don't think it's showing off the paint to its full advantage, where we've got a nice big beefy boy to show off Raven Feather. There's some other stuff, and in fact today I will be, Quindy's giving you a direct link if you just want to go get those metallic paints right now, last chance. Today I'll be working somewhat with the Barrowgate paint set, and there are still Barrowgate boxes available, and then I have a bunch of other colors to accompany those, especially brown, because I want to work on the tiki, and if I want to make it look like painted wood, I figure I need some brown. So we'll work on Mako, the Tiki Shark. This is a fundraising figure. So Jason Weeby sculpted and donated this, and then Reaper is making them available, and $7.50 of every purchase goes to victims of the Maui fires. And hold on, I have an unpainted one here, or an unprimed. So this is a 3D print. This one you can still see a few of the little remnants. If you go back, I don't know, 2 or 3 shows, and all the Reaper shows are archived on YouTube if they're no longer available on Twitch. I prepped up this guy and Rael Rainfeather, who was last month's mini of the month. I think you can just go buy her still if you want. That's the one that I did the shaded metallic ghost vein on. So 3D prints are resin. I do think it needs to be primed for max paint durability. So I had a show where I was showing how I prepped the 3D prints, including the tools that Reaper included in that Barrowgate box, and then I primed them, and I worked on something else that day too, but now I can't remember what it was. But anyway, there's what he looks like unpainted, and you get a super fun signature from Jason on the bottom. Quindy is linking to Rael, which implies that she is still available and still awesome, even if she's not the mini of the month. I do have the new mini of the month. I'll show him in a little bit. Well, no, you know what? I'm going to show him right now because this is Ron's mini, and I don't want to splash paint on it. So I'm going to show you him and then try to put him somewhere safe, and then maybe I'll show him again at the end after I'm finished splashing paint. So this is this month's mini of the month. So that's the gift with purchase one, or you can just buy one. He is a hobgoblin. He has a name now on the site, and I looked at it, and I have no memory of that. So for me, he was just the Axe Hobgoblin. Does he have friends? Maybe. I don't know. And this is how I painted him up. And then I was goofing around with some weathering. I think I over-weathered the axe a little and probably took down. Probably should have slightly more highlights, but you know, he is a grim, monstrous figure. I didn't want to make him too, you know, I know Ron likes his grim dark guys, grim and dark. So I have no idea why he asked me to paint them then. Because this is the challenge. If you've been here a minute, you know. The challenge is painting something that's very desaturated and overall fairly dark, but making it interesting to look at. And I would say probably I still didn't achieve the dream, which is catches your eye from 2 feet away on a shelf or on a table, and then you want to pick it up and look at all the little details. I think he's a little more on the little detail side, but it is always the struggle, and I know that Ron will provide me more opportunities to wrestle with that. So that is the skin color, and that is the armor color, which I mentioned because I started out trying to do more of a warm armor color like the one I had done on Baron Blacktree, and somewhere on the Reaper site, I guess probably in the craft and hobby, there's a little hobby something in one of the drop downs that's like tutorials and stuff, and there's a PDF of how I painted Baron Blacktree that I think includes some color samples. I don't know, there's something on my website too, but excuse me, you need to have some kind of contrast. So if you're not going to have strong light dark contrast, and you're not going to have strong saturated color, you know, saturated versus not saturated, or, you know, like a strong color against a strong color, blue and orange in this case, you got to work on other ones. So I was doing blue and orange, and then also that is warm, cool. So I had to add the cool tones to the armor because it was like really flat and not showing up when the first night I did it in a warmer color, like part of it. And then I had it up on my shelf, and when I would go by, I couldn't even barely see that there were armor plates versus the rest of the stuff. So I was like, no, I think I gotta pop a little blue into that, and that should fix it. So I'll maybe show him later, but we'll put him aside right now. And there are, the Dungeon Dwellers painting guides is where the Baron Blacktree one is, and Quindy has linked to that because there are guides from all kinds of other painters too. So there are many cool things there to look at. But today I am going to paint with color. You know, since I had a couple weeks of boring Ron colors, now we're going to paint this guy. And I was looking up tiki stuff, and I was like, what do I paint him? And then I thought, well, you know what? We talked about how these are sunset kind of tropical colors. I'm going to use at least some of these. I probably won't use these a lot because they are more pastel. And I'm not sure whether the yellow is going to make it in. The tiki, kind of tiki lounge traditional colors seem to be more of like a yellow-green, which I have supplies for, so we'll see if I do that. But first we need wood. So I just grabbed some brown and some other brown. I was debating just painting the whole guy wood and then going over with the colors. Because if I want to make it look like chip paint or something, that'd be easy. But then you're going to have to sit here and wait for wood to dry. So I don't know. I don't know if I'll do that or not. Who knows what I'll do. And of course, blue liner is here. Blue liner's always here. There is like so much blue liner on what apparently his name is Kardag of the Scarneck Hobgoblin tribe. Hobgoblins are one of those ones, like, I don't feel like the groups that I've played Dungeons and Dragons with have featured hobgoblins very much. So they're one of those like standard monsters that I'm just like, I don't know. I do not know much about that. And this, of course, Ron wanted the classic color scheme, which is orange, but a deeper orange than the goblins, and then they have a blue nose. So that is what I did. Oh, and where were my little guys? Because if you were here a few weeks ago, I was painting test color scheme on these guys, and that is what it was for, to figure out how to make an orange skin that was related to, but not the same as, the goblin skin from the set of goblins that was originally in Kickstarter 5, I want to say. But I am making stuff up, who knows. Do I remember which Kickstarter things come out in? Sometimes. Sometimes not. So some of these parts I may end up going over with other color. I don't know. I'm going to need a lot more paint. He's a beefy boy. Oh, and I'm not staying in my mark very well. I apologize. Let's see if we can. I don't know if those are messing with the... This is brown sand that I'm starting with. I wanted, often for wood, I'll do... Oop, no, this is not brown sand. Brown sand is the lighter one. What did I do with that one? What an excellent question. There it is. This is charred brown, which I like a lot. Often for wood, I will paint, we'll just save that for later, a more grayed out wood, like old wood, often has as much gray or more as it does brown. And the shield brown, whatever the other two colors in that triad are. I think one of them might be weathered brown. No, that doesn't sound right. Well, those ones. Those triad. The triad that has shield brown in it, I like a lot for kind of old wood. Not like totally grayed out beech wood or something, but like wood that's getting old and dry and gray. But I didn't feel like that fit the vibe of a nicely painted tropical color inspiration statue. So I went with a warmer wood. Or warmer brown than I would normally. And, you know, the wood is probably stained or painted or something. Did I do any research? Barely. I do like doing research, and I think it's a good idea. The whole tiki thing is pretty complex, and I do recommend doing some research on it. Like, the word is, I believe, a Polynesian word for God. It's certainly, it's a religious term, and then these carvings, when done, you know, by Polynesian people in a traditional way, are spiritual things. But in the 40s and 50s and up through the 70s, really, there was this kind of tiki subculture in America that was sort of inspired by Polynesian motifs and tiki lounges and stuff. And if you've ever, some of you I know are probably of an age where you already know this, but for those who are younger, if you've ever wondered about some of the lyrics on Werewolf of London, and they're talking about, I saw a werewolf at Trader Vic's drinking a pina colada. Pina coladas, Mai Tais, and those things came out of tiki culture, and that was a tiki lounge bar, Trader Vic's. So that was a tropical styling werewolf. And his hair was perfect. He had a lot going on. Hopefully you can just ignore whatever my husband's talking about in his meeting in the background. So some of these areas I will probably paint. Josh Rama would like to meet his tailor. Yes. I have to think about places I would leave brown. So this is a good example of, you know, how having a plan is good when you paint. But I don't always do it that way on Beyond the Kit, because this way I can make mistakes and you can be amused, and then I can fix the mistakes, and hopefully you can be educated and or inspired and or still amused. So he is a little bit texture in places, and I was painting fast, so I probably have bubbles. Just gonna check for them. Well, and pooling, because then the paint will never dry, and we have to go darker than that in these crevices. We might have to get out the hairdryer for the second week. When I'm remotely in focus, it's so hard to see the thing that tells me over everything else. My setup is better, but it is far from perfect. I am really enjoying the new lamp. I think that you could see briefly at the beginning is the red grass lamp that they did on Kickstarter. So it was insanely expensive. I mean, in context, I bought like odd lights and daylight lamps in the past, but I have to say that I like this better than any of the odd lights and daylight lamps that I have bought in the past. Daylight is a brand name, not just like a concept, I guess. At least in America, it is. I guess it's an Ottlight competitor. For some reason, I ended up with more of their lamps than Ottlight. Make sure all the little nooks and crannies are nooked and crannied. And then what? Yes. So do I love lamp? I mean, as much as I love lamps, I really do like having a lot of light. I like being able to put the light right near my eyeballs, which is partly why I can't see the preview scheme very much. So I'm experimenting with, this is actually not paper, this is fun foam, I think. It's like kids fun foam. Normally you get it in shapes, but it does come in sheets. And this is actually what I use for photo backdrops, because you can curve it, and it's pretty sturdy. Eventually, I mean, it has I used this one for years. So this got retired from being a photo backdrop, and I have some replacement photo backdrops. So I thought, well, I could try, because it doesn't have any texture like the paper that I use has. So the best answer would probably be to just ask Anne where she gets her great paper and get some of that. But that would require remembering things and being organized. And that's not really what we do here. No. All right, well, remembering things is definitely not what we do here. So maybe I will just, since everything's wet, maybe I'll just try doing some wet stuff instead of waiting to do a wash. But I think this is going to end up being a hairdryer day. Or I can see if I have something else to work on. Yeah, I think letting it dry might be the smarter move. But else could I do? I could. So last week, I think one of you suggested that I make him a panda bear for the bear part of owlbear, since clearly I didn't go very traditional on the owl part of owlbear. And I laughed, but then I looked at some pictures and I'm like, you know what? I think it could work. I think it could happen. But I think I would be smart to paint the base first, so maybe I'll just use these same colors on his base. At least part of it. Trash. I was just cheap and did the research on what the lumen rate of the OT lamps were and got some LED bulbs that had the same temperature and put them in some swing arm desk lamps. Yeah, my most recent lamp actually was not a fancy one. It was the one that you see if you've been to ReaperCon and you've seen on the artist tables. It was like a towel lamp, TAO. And I did like that lamp actually quite a bit, and it was reasonably priced. They're still on Amazon, I think, but they're updated, so it's hard to say if they're like, because people will say, you know, what lamp do you use and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, I think this is the updated version of what we were using, but I don't know for sure. So somewhere on my site, I think there's a link from when we were talking about supplies for conventions. I think I linked to what I thought was the most up-to-date version of the lamp. And my question will be, for the owlbear, some of this is probably grass or, you know, whatnot, vegetation of some variety. So I may come back in later and do more, or I may see if I can find some green paint. I have a very specific collection of tropical paints at my desk right now, other than I do have the kit paints, so I'll probably have to go dig up the kit colors to add some vegetation to this. And that is a situation where this excessive drying time of paint, you know, when you're on screen and you want it to dry quickly, this time it's actually kind of an advantage because I can go add all kinds of colors on top. I mean, it would have been smart if I had my green paint out to start, but let's see. Let's see what greens I do have. I have these greens. Not super green. Might work. Oh, I don't have that lid anymore. But the other thing I have is, let's see, got some teal. And I've got some yellow. You can turn that into green, I bet. Let's get the insane yellow. Meadowlark gold. Let's see what happens. Well, it's almost too much green. Dark enough is the problem. But that is blue too, so. And throw in some of this brown. Make it a more foresty green. And I just want to get a little going on the parts that aren't so easy to reach. All right, come back in and try to figure out what I'm doing more later. So as a first coat, you know, I am very likely to come over this again later. So I don't have to aim for like amazingly wonderful straight out the gate. I just want to get some color variation in there because it looks more natural. Things aren't all the same. There are rocks. I'm choosing not to care about the rocks at this time. So now I'm just going to go through a little. So I don't know if you remember when I was doing the goofing around with base bosses episode, but I was letting kind of that wet and wet thing happen where you get these little streaks. In this case, I don't think I want that. So I'm just going to tap them out with the brush. But even if it, like, this is dried quickly and I don't want to touch it, I could just, you know, go over the edges once it's dry or go over with another coat. I did kind of like how that yellow was just doing stuff though. I'll add that back in. I keep having to pick up paint because this paint is so wet that I have to have wetness on the brush or it won't attract. Onto the miniature. And I'll probably call that good. Check on our tiki friend. The chat is reminding us that there is an upcoming Kickstarter for Reaper for the Dungeon Dwellers RPG. The Unpainted Rock on... Oh, here. Well, let's just cover that. So we don't kill Neat Pete's OCD. And it doesn't hurt to get rid of all the white. Now this, because this one is a plastic miniature, so I did not prime it. And I like to have a good thick coat of paint as my first coat for sturdiness. So I wouldn't go in with like washes or anything at this stage. But like what I've done here should make for a nice sturdy paint job. Although also what I did here was use up all my Tiki Guys paint. He's not quite dry, but he might be dry enough. You're welcome, Pete. I get it. I've totally watched videos and there's been like a hair or they forgot to do something and it's like, oh my God, I can't concentrate on what they're talking about or what they're doing because that thing is there and it's making me crazy. So yes, I am using blue liner to shade my brown. I thought about bringing over walnut, and then I remembered how much I like how the dark blue. It's a blue liner, is very dark, dull blue, and I think it makes really nice shadows for browns. And it is definitely less saturated and duller, so it works as shadows on that front because I want the shadows to, you know, fall back, not draw your attention. That's not their job. They're there to define the shapes. Things. Just looking for parts where maybe a little thin. Although that just adds color variation. So I'm going to stop looking for those parts. And get ready for a wash. So I want to take that dark color with a bit of blue in it and put it all over to add some, you know, to bring out the lines in between the planks and also the you know, just the wood texture. And I'm going to try to bring that out through the lighter colors as well. Let's see if I can come up with the fast way to do that. Alright, where's my handy dandy wash testing sheet? Actually, let me see if I have a different handy dandy wash testing sheet. That one is someone else's copyrighted material. This one is my copyrighted material. So I don't care that it's on screen. I'm not going to sue myself. That would be weird. I'm sure it's been done. I'm sure somehow someone's had a company where they've ended up suing themselves. Like now I want to know the story of that because I have to believe that it's happened. It just sounds like something that would have happened. All right, so as to not be completely crazy, I am going to very briefly hair dry. I will turn the sound off for that though. Hold on, where's my sign? Don't tell Anne. I know she doesn't approve of that. He's Zachary. I am stuck in meetings. The hairdryer sign made my day. Oh, I know that Anne does not approve of drying paint with the hairdryer, and I don't do it a lot necessarily, or if I do, I usually put it on air. Even then, I mean, it's not just Anne. Golden doesn't recommend it either. But I have not had a lot of problems happen because of it, and I don't want you guys to sit there watching paint dry. So I don't. What does Anne do on her show? She probably tells you Kiki stories. Alas, I have no Kiki. There have been kitten discussions because now we have. Corbin's just like one day 3 months ago he woke up and said, "I am middle-aged and I'm embracing it. I would like to lie down a lot." See, that was one of the reasons you shouldn't rush. I just lifted paint. So he's still fun. He's just not like as fun as he used to be. He's still a hilarious, overacting ham. And then our other cat is an old lady cat. And we did have a thing for the last few cats where it was like every 7 years. We weren't planning it, but every 7 years is when there would be a new kitten. So there's been talk. But it also seems like maybe it would be nicer to Ella if she does not have to deal with that for her golden years. And then we get 2. So I don't know. I don't know if having a kitten would distract Corbin from talking to Ella at all, which she would enjoy. She'd be like, "Why do you keep talking to me?" Made it pretty clear I'm not interested in being your friend. Which is too bad. I feel bad for Corbin. He doesn't want a friend. Is the other reason that we talk about getting a kitten sometimes. But now he's probably just old enough to be like, you know, you reach that age where you think you have energy until you're around people who actually have energy, and you're like, oh my God, I just need to have a lie down. I think Corbin's at that age of cats. Oh, I missed his one little fin side here. So we got this place, and we'll pretend that's like scratched off paint or something later. We'll do something. Now I have to decide about the actual colors. Well, his little tongue will clearly have to get painted first. So this is red fork jasper. It's a little too light. We need some helper colors that I picked up. What did I get? Mahogany brown. I did actually shake the paints before the show, so you should shake more than you see me shaking. Requiem red is a color I keep regretting using on stream because it is very hard to say. It is also one of the colors that you can add to your Kickstarter 6 pledge if you think it is as cool as I do, because just like I love blue liner for shading a bunch of things, Requiem red is kind of my red version of that one. I want a warm color. That is the one that I tend to turn to. Let's see if we can if I paint it in this direction, is it more visible? So there's like a little tongue sculpted here at the bottom, and it goes just above the teeth. At least I assume it is meant to be a tongue. And I will have trouble if I try to keep doing it that way. So and then the exciting thing is that because this is wood, I don't care if it's streaky. I in fact want it to be streaky. Doing it wet on wet might almost be bad because it's not going to be streaky enough. And I think that is happening a little bit. Using the mahogany. So I might just leave it there, and then I'll come back with the and do something for highlights. Okay, what else? I feel like his lips would be a similar color, but that also I should paint the teeth before we get into any of that. Did I think about teeth when I was picking out colors? Definitely not. But is just lighter wood the best answer for teeth? Maybe it is. I'm not gonna have to get another palette paper out at this rate. No. But that is okay. I needed a bigger brush than I thought I did. Somewhere I am something. Contrary to appearances, I did attempt to be organized before we began today. Trying to paint my strokes in the direction of the wood grain to reinforce that idea. Right. Sometimes there are natural shadows and they mess you up. I guess for teeth we're gonna have to go a lot lighter than this, aren't we? He needs a shark. You should have some bright choppers. And since I paint best in this direction, I'm gonna flip that over. So it's always better to move your miniature rather than move your hand. The more you can make the same gesture over and over again with your hand, the more likely you are to improve your brush control. I'm going to give that paint just like 5 seconds to dry at least before I mess with it and go back to the top. Having way too much impatience today. I do not often do that in my own painting, but then, you know, I can just go look at a book or something if I need to while I, you know, check my mail or whatever. So while I'm at my paint desk and I'm not trying to be interesting, which is, you know, most of the time, I'll just go do something else. Do whatever a cat tells me to do. That is a common one. since these are his choppers, let's go ahead and get some actual white. I'm not too fussed about whether my brush tip is staying really nice and pointy, because if the hairs splay out, that's just going to make more wood grain. Sometimes you can take the things that bug us about painting and turn them to our advantage. It is rare, but it does occasionally happen. Now, what I need to do, I should have some vague idea of the direction of the light, because we're going to be painting planes. The teeth are like pyramids. There are going to be some flat planes. So I'm just going to randomly decide that the light is coming in this direction, because that is usually how I like to do it. So these planes have to get lightened up. This is going to make more difference on the bottom ones, but I might as well be consistent. Just so they look a little more three-dimensional, since they actually are three-dimensional. The whole thing with miniatures is sometimes they are small enough that we have to do paint stuff to really make them look three-dimensional. So I did end up a lot lighter on the teeth than I started, but I just wanted to make sure that, you know, there was some shading and whatnot under at the base of the teeth. I'm probably going to do the lips with that same color as the tongue, so I'll go ahead and put my Requiem red, maybe even a little, we'll make Requiem purple. I'm mixing in some blue liner. That should be a very overshadowed area. All right, now I think the tongue is dry enough to mess with. All right, where do you want to focus? You don't. You object to the whole concept of focusing. I thought this gray mat would help you, and yet you were being very stubborn. And wanting to focus on my hands most of all. Cameras probably are programmed to prioritize skin, since the majority of people are going to be painting or taking pictures of people. But, well, so this reminds me of a weird thing. So last year, I guess it was last year, when the new iPhones came out, my husband always gets one from work because he works on a mobile app. So they just have, you know, they always have the latest ones, but then they also keep all the old ones to do testing on and stuff. So he got his new phone, and the camera is always the thing that makes me most likely to want to get a new phone. So I was like, all right, they said all these things about the camera. Let's show me your camera, because I hadn't updated my phone in a few years. So I took a couple miniatures and I took pictures with his phone, and then I took pictures with my phone that was, well, my phone was like at least 3 years old, I think. And the pictures on my phone came out better of miniatures. Like regular things, maybe not, but miniatures, like his phone couldn't focus on them. They didn't look good at all. And I'm like, what? I don't understand. And eventually I did upgrade to get that phone. And my current phone takes fine pictures of miniatures. So I was like, well, maybe your phone's just broken. And he didn't care. He's like, I'm not going to make work go through all the thing to send me another phone. If that's the one thing the camera on my phone can't do, whatever, I don't care. So then this year, he gets his new fancy phone. And I'm like, all right, let's take some pictures of miniatures. And it's exactly the same thing. The pictures on my last generation phone are way better than the pictures on the new phone. And I'm like, is there like some coding thing that they don't bother about straight away, or like someone has to complain or something? It's really weird. Because in general, the pictures are much better. The color is nicer, and like they're just better. But in this one way, they're very much not better, and it is confusing about why. Why are they not better? So I'm like, I feel like you need to go tell Apple about this and get them to fix it. I mean, I realize not everyone who gets a phone is taking pictures of miniatures, but plenty of us are. And I mean, it has a macro mode and everything. But we don't always want macro. So I was going further back and zooming in. Polly Schmaltzel says, I believe it's the auto filters that they're putting on the newer phones. Well, they need to fix the software, because there's it should be better at taking pictures, because it's got a whole new camera that's supposed to be better at that. All right, so before I do the bottom teeth, I just want to very quickly bring out some of, and it's still a little wet there in the back, but I'm going to try and work around it. Bring out some of the very textured inside of his mouth. So I don't want this to be too light, because it being dark makes a nice backdrop for the teeth and everything. But Jason worked hard on all of these textures, so I want to bring some of them out. Because I mean, so I use, if you look at the picture of Cardag, I had to look up in the scrolling for the name of that guy. The picture of Cardag, the hobgoblin, that was not taken with a phone. I have a very nice camera that I take like final pictures for clients with. But I really like the phone for doing work in progress pictures at my desk that then I can put in the blog articles and stuff, or just keep for my own reference to help me remember what I was doing. So when phones got to the point where they could take decent pictures of miniatures, I liked that, and it is a feature I want in my phone. Now for the bottom chompers. I have to remember what I did. We need a lot more of that, I think. That color. A little more at the bottom there. this to work into, if nothing else. Sorry, I think I got in way the wrong position. It's still struggling. I don't understand. But unfortunately, I do have to hold him in this direction because I do practice what I preach, and I'm very used to reorientating the miniature instead of trying to reorient my hand. And in this instance, I'm having some hand and wrist problems, so it would be unpleasant for me on a couple of levels to try to contort into doing this in the other direction. This is an unknown problem. My doctor attempted to figure out what it was, and I guess he kind of gave up. He's a good doctor in general, but that particular problem was a little like, okay, that's all we're gonna do. All right. It hadn't been happening a lot lately, and normally painting is like one of the few things that doesn't bother, because I mean, you know, how gentle is this, right? Like, you know how I say you should be able to paint a baby's face. That's how gentle we're going sometimes. Or have I not said that on the show? I've certainly said it. I say it in classes all the time. But maybe I haven't said it on the show, and you're all like, are you over there painting babies' faces? And I am not, because that would require closer contact with babies than I wish to enjoy. But it is a good way to explain, you know, how gentle our strokes are. But I was actually having to paint through the pain to get that hobgoblin guy done. It was mostly like rinsing the brush and stuff that was, like when I would shake my hand that way, it would hurt. But I can't paint with a wrist brace on, because you can't do that with your hand with the wrist brace on. But I'm using it while I sleep and anytime I'm doing other things that irritate it, so hopefully it's calming down a little. All right, now I have to do the same thing. I have to remember which direction I said the light was coming from. And probably do it more because these are the bottom teeth and it's more obvious from this orientation. So I'll put in a bit and then that is the other downside of moving your hand instead of the miniature, is then I have to reorient him back to see whether where I'm putting the paint looks remotely correct. But that's also why you don't judge your blending or freehand or OSL or whatever thing. You don't judge by what it looks like when you've got the miniature like that, because that's not really what it looks like. You gotta look at it like this to know what it looks like. Just darkening the shadow side a little, or trying to. It's not going great for me. Gotta keep down, way down in there. I think you can see it, but there's like a little lighter thing, but you could totally see it once it was dry and you were just looking at it. It would be very obvious. But and he's a shark, so you know, teeth are part of his story, really. Oh, I think those do look like nice shark chompers now. All right, I will work on the bits that are like gums in his mouth. I kind of feel like I should have a more intense red than what I ended up with. Some of the, I was looking at some like tiki lounge color schemes and stuff. Some of them were, had a pretty intense red in it. And then when I decided that I would just go with the Barrowgate colors, I was going to do more of the tropical peachy red. But in practical effect for mixing, I'm running into a few drawbacks. But we will live with that. Just trying to decide if I want this part to be red too, but I think alternating stripe kind of thing is going to be more fun. So we will make his lips one of the other colors. Do I know which one? No. But actually, I think we can work on the main red for a minute. Although, what do we want to do with his eyes? Is that yellow maybe like too much? Do I know what color shark's eyes are in the real world? I'm not sure that I do. A little bit of a chance to dry. Because the whole alternating layers thing is going to make this interesting. Because usually what you'll do is you'll just look for another section of the figure that doesn't touch this section and work on it. But with the layers, you know, the alternating kind of stripe pattern, that might be tougher than I think it is. Let's try. It is my hope that if I use like one of these, so this is one of the dome brushes, but this one is like a soft goat hair, and this one is a hard hog bristle hair. So these ones are actually for stencils, like you put down a stencil and you dot the paint like that. But sometimes I think I can get a streakier look with these. Sometimes I think I can't because bristle brushes react differently to water. And they get kind of soggy. So they act differently in oil painting than they do with acrylic paint or something like that. But yeah, we're getting some streaks, so let's see. My only concern is that the paint on the miniature is so fresh that if a brush is too streaky or like too scratchy, I could end up taking some of that paint off. So first I just want to bring back some of the warmer brown. That was the charred brown without blue liner added. So I'm going to apply this pretty liberally, actually. I have a bigger one of these. Maybe I use the bigger one even for this side. And I'm using the same principle that I used with the when I was making little tiny brush strokes, in that I'm pulling the brush in the same direction as the wood grain. So any marks the brush makes should partner with the marks that the sculpting has. That Jason put this cool wood texture in for us. But in traditional dry brushing, you'd be going across to minimize getting paint in the... Hold on, I think there's some kind of cat thing. No, I don't see any. There's a cat in here messing with something, but I cannot see them currently, I think. There he is. Hi, buddy. If my hand wasn't hurting, I would try to pick him up and put him on the other camera, but he's a lot of cat. I cannot wrangle him without full wrist support being available. But I need to not forget his little feet. They're so cute. You can see he's got toenails sculpted and everything. We will paint those later, I think, so that he has cool colored toenails. Just like if I was painting a statue of this, I would totally be like, yeah, let's paint the toenails. Baldur's Gate rant of the week. We need more custom dice options. Yeah, it seems like a strange thing not to have more of. Although I've been playing mostly on PlayStation or on Steam Deck, so I don't really play on PC. I don't know if all the modding people are going nuts with the dice. But there's something they could be doing, like charity fundraisers or stuff with custom dice. Or you unlock dice by story things. Get to a certain approval rating from your companion and unlock special dice from them maybe. D&D Beyond certainly gets me to purchase dice on occasion. Although now I have Timberchode dice. It's like, well, could I ever have any other kind of dice? I mean, Timberchode is the best. But then when you roll a 20, or actually I think whatever high, it's whatever the high roll on the die is. He like runs across the screen and roars. It's hilarious. I love it. I don't get to see it very often because rolling well with dice is not my thing, but every now and then. Julie would get to see Timberchode like all the time. think this is working with the, oops, with the brush, and then I pressed way too hard. I may have to go back in and bring out some of the deeper lines with a finely pointed brush. But I don't think the wash was a waste of time, in that it's going to act as shadow in some areas where I'm not going as light. Oh, the feet. I forgot the little feet again. I might paint the gills a color, but I haven't really decided about that. All right, now what color do I want? I am going to rinse this off briefly. Ah, Zachariah has sound on finally. Hello, hopefully your meeting wasn't too torturous. Let's see if I can try and dry this out again, because hopefully I have not got it too, the bristle brush soaks up the water and then I'll get droopier, and that's not exactly what I want. Trashorama. They are logging customer choice paths. They stated that the dog has been petted 700,000 times so far. I believe it. I pet the dog a lot. I wish he had more responses. Is my one and only complaint with the awesome dog. What am I looking for? We don't go with that bright. Doggo needs more pets. Doggo needs pets for sure. If you aren't petting your doggo, you should pet your doggo. In and out of the game. And I'll say this cryptically to avoid spoilers, but the game also reinforces my belief that anything will enjoy petting if it doesn't have to worry about food and safety. So pet other things is what I'm saying. If given the opportunity. I hadn't played for a little while. I was finally, because I painting that hobgoblin guy took way longer than I expected. I'm like, wait, he's a hobgoblin. He's not supposed to look like all his stuff is super nice and everything. And then I don't know if it's just that I hadn't really painted much for a long time. What happened? But that took me way longer than I expected. So I was kind of rushing the last few days to make sure I got it to Ron in time to unveil as the October mini. So I hadn't been able to play any Baldur's Gate or answer any email or do any other things that I still haven't answered the email. Honestly, I was like, well, I'm going to take a day and just kind of relax and also tidy up my studio, computer room, hanging out place because it was making me crazy. I got just a ton of packages while I was rushing to finish. So, but this is very common with bristle brushes that the little hairs fall out. So that is not as alarming as it would be if you had a fancy sable hair vanisher painting brush. That is just a thing. Often you will find them in your oil painting. I have noticed. Just a little lighter, but now I have to be careful. Not ruin anything I've done previously. Where's a good place to test? I'll test here. So I don't know if you all do this, but when I'm painting, I typically go straight to the things that interest me the most. Like if I'm painting skin, you know, I'm working on the face and then I'm going to the rest of the body. But if you're not sure if your mix is right, or you know you're trying a weird color thing or whatever, it is better to not go straight to the, you know, interesting prominent feature that you want everyone to look at, so that if it didn't work out, you're testing that on a part of the miniature that draws less scrutiny, and you're going to be less tense about repairing. But this is advice that I am bad at taking. I will kind of get in the groove and just not think about it. And go, oh crap, I sure wish I had done that on the knee or whatever. And maybe just a tiny bit lighter. Very, very carefully. Sakurai I am. Yes, I have a tendency to do what interests me first instead of the most recessed part, like I should. Yeah, looking for those recessed parts is definitely helpful. Hopefully I got them here. I guess we'll find out. I'm pretty happy with the wood, I think. There's a couple little places I think I want to double check with a hand brush, because I could not reach them otherwise. Well, I mean, not that that wasn't an airbrush, but you know what I mean. A fine detail brush. Let me use words that make sense. Because yeah, in here, on this side of his feet, it was hard for me to get the brush in there. And then right under his mouth. Just want to get the edges of the flippers. To stand out nicely. And despite many attempts, I didn't quite get the top of tail fin with as much highlighting as I hoped. I'm actually going to leave that part fairly dark because I think it wouldn't stay as clean in there. So, but let's see where I am. I feel like this needed to get a little lighter than it got it, and we'll do a little bit in here. Now we can go back to fun with colors. Oh, I might hear a sad little cat. Ella, is that you? Yeah? Do you want to come say hi to the people? Aww. What does that mean in cat? Means I'm not doing whatever it was you told me to do? It probably does mean that. Hold on just a sec, boo. Alright. Come here, little kitty. Where are you? Okay, now I lost her. Ella. Ellison, where'd you go? You're right here. There we are. Come here. Come say hi to everybody. You haven't said hi for a while. Here you are. I know you don't like when I do anything other than what you tell me to do. Even though sometimes you don't know what you tell me to do. It is hard to paint this way though, my friend. But let's see. Let's see what we can do. She is a very tail swishy kitty. I don't think she knows what the tail is doing. I think the tail has its whole separate life. And she has no idea. It does make it super fun to paint too. Because it's like, she will sit here and the rest of the kitty will be nice and calm. But that tail's going to get painted. So swishy. Yeah, show them how swishy it is. Are you silly? Are you the silliest cat? Because even cat logic is tough for you? Oh, they can't see your pretty face. There we go. Hi. Alright, we shall futilely attempt to paint with the tail. What color is next, tail? What of these beautiful colors is next? Oh, maybe it's time for some of that green. Or do the dark teal? Maybe we do the dark teal. Which is, what did I get for the dark teal? It looks like she's expecting to be set down, so she's riled up. Now she'll actually just sit there very happily with that tail. It does go like sometimes more when she's angry, but it's like she'll be sitting on you, purring, happy, and just, I think she has no idea that she's doing that. Sometimes if I lie down, she likes me to lie down, and then she sits on top of me. But lately she started turning in the other direction, so then there's just a tail in my face, and I'm like, this is really not as much fun for me as you might think it is, kitty. So I try to make her turn back around. My sponge got so wet I had to wring it out into my rinse cup, which is not infrequent, and it hurts. Yeah, it's funny. So when I'm in a normal chair, this is the shoulder. She can't sit on the other shoulder. But if I'm in the easy chair, then she wants the opposite shoulder, and she won't sit on that shoulder. She's a very specific cat. I think I probably need to have a slightly darker version of this. I think there's a something stuck. On him, but I'll investigate that in a moment. So yes, I was not comfortable enough. Not doing what she wanted enough, so she's probably gonna go. Well, hopefully she did notice that they had their dinner. I heard Kevin giving them their dinner. Cat dinner is at 4 o'clock. I don't know why. Cat dinner, cat breakfast is at 10, or cat lunch, I guess. I don't know. And then cat dinner is at 4, and then at 10 again for canned food. And where else would this be a cool color to have? Let's see here. Probably should have doubled the reddish color up somewhere, but we also have I forgot about the crowberry. And we need to use more crowberry. Alas, this is a somewhat transparent color that I've mixed, so I will need to do multiple coats. I'm gonna change that part from being reddish to being bluish. Kate the Mini Painter, hello. Let's get rid of some of these that we are not using anymore. Zachariah's 19-year-old cat started doing the face swatting as well. So our older cat before was Archer. And he was kind of like a legendary curmudgeon. So he was very fond of smacking him in the face with his tail. He was a cuddly curmudgeon. He did like to be snuggled. But he also would get like insane and cranky about many, many things that only he understood. And I used to joke around that when he died, he would haunt us. And he is, but not in the way I expected. He haunts us by possessing Ella and making her crankier and more demanding than she used to be. Which I'm sure is also the old age. But it's just like sometimes she just makes these faces and you're like, okay, Archer's in charge now. Because she was just like the sweetest, nicest cat. Always like, in some ways, the most stubborn cat I've ever known. But her response to things she didn't like was just to walk away. Like she's like, all right, I want no part of this. So I'm out. Like she wouldn't sit there trying to make you fix the situation, which is now more what happens. But she was just always such a sweet cat. And now we think, well, we joke that Archer is in there being a bad influence. But alas, I'm sure it is just how much it's not great to be old, which, you know, I can relate to that, Ella. Sometimes it's not great to be old. I completely understand. So it will be easier to do this now than when I get to the next color, I figure. So instead of trying to line between two things, this is my lining cheating method. You paint one thing, you do the lining, and if you have to fix it up, I haven't done all the little wood grain strokes or anything yet, so it shouldn't be too painful to fix it if necessary. And let's put some of that around the eyes maybe too, for extra glowiness. Although I make that eyelid part, I can see a little light color part in there, and it just won't take the paint. That's very annoying when that happens, which it very often seems to. It's like, no, I can see lightness, but no matter what I do, I can't get my paintbrush in there. But hopefully it is just now the reflection of wet paint, and it actually is darker. I don't know what color to paint around his eyes, but we'll get there. Zachariah, she's a very possessive kitty who demands things, sometimes vaguely, sometimes a tour of things that need attention, sometimes just one thing. Well, this does sound a lot like Ella, I have to say. She was never great at communicating. Like most of my cats, it's like, I want water. They walk you over to the water dish, and you're like, oh, okay, let's have some fresh water. Ella will do the tour. She's like wandering around the house. It's like, okay, clearly you want something, but could you give us a clue? Like, could you charades it? Something. She's getting a little better, but it's like she'll always just walk to the bedroom. It's like, but I don't think you want pets, because the bedroom is where she goes when she wants pets. I think you want food, so why don't we go in the complete opposite direction to where the food place is? And then sometimes she will just, our kitchen has 2 doors, and sometimes she does want food, but she'll walk in one and then walk out the other, and you're like, okay, we just took a whole tour of the house, and I'm still not entirely sure what you're after here, my friend. Like, I will do the thing if you just explain the thing a little more clearly. I'm gonna flip them, because otherwise I will get paint on things I already painted. Even this way I might get paint on things I already painted, but the odds are improved. That seems like maybe too big of a jump. We'll make a middle thing. I like want to see texture, but I don't want it to look totally streaky. Well, I mean, I guess I do want it to look totally streaky. I don't want it to look like paint. Well, okay, I sort of do want it to look like paint, but I want it to look like in character paint, not me painting things. It's so rare that you paint something that's paint. It's kind of interesting. I don't want to get this too light because then the eyes will not look as light in comparison. And I could even darken it up a little if I want. Maybe by streaking in the opposite direction. But I still want it to look kind of tropical, so I'll leave it there. I'm gonna have to add more red to the tongue, I think. Sakurai, I found she definitely responds to key phrases now. Show me or let's go, I'm following you. Get her to show me. She doesn't like good girl very much, probably because I say it at vet visits. She's very intolerant of me doing anything while she's on my shoulders, especially typing. And I get that. It's the same thing. And Archer was like extra like that. It's like, no, I want to sit on your desk, but you're not allowed to do anything. We're just going to sit here. It's like, okay, this is very exciting for us, buddy. But how could you show your servitude if you were off doing things, I guess? Are you even a cat servant if you're answering email or something? No. More color decisions, I guess. But I'll finish this up. Because I remember now that I was doing color synergy or whatever. Making 2 sections that color. I feel like it's not as lit up as it should be. Let's try moving the lights a little. Corbin seems to know a lot of English phrases. Like sometimes we spell things he really likes, just in case. But then he's a cat, so he doesn't always respond to some of the English phrases. He knows, like, no. He doesn't acknowledge that one very much. That's a dumb word. Why should he pay attention to that idea? Oh, maybe got a little too streaky there. But that is okay. We can go back in the other direction. Zachariah's cat also knows time for bed or go to bed, go upstairs, eat your food, what you want, and speak up the devil. There is an RPG called Ultraviolet Grasslands, where the main authority in the capital city are psychic cats who have everyone serve them. Trash is telling us about a game or reality. I don't know. That's hilarious. Get this top bridge a little bit because of it's three-dimensionality. That's what we're here for. Making three-dimensional things look three-dimensional. It seems weird, but that's what miniature painting is. That is our lives. Let's really bring out this edge. I'm gonna even do a little bit on the edges of some of the carving in the boards. I will have to come back in with dark paint on some of those, but I'm not gonna worry about that right now. Oh, this might be like a little scratchy. Alright, what colors from the set have I not used yet? Use that one or that? We definitely need some crowberry. And I like the, so the Morning Glory would work as a highlight for crowberry, but because this is supposed to be like a very bright tropical kind of vibe, I'm going to go with something a little bit pink. I think Corbin's favorite is snacks or let's go outside. O-U-T is the one we have to spell usually because he gets very excited about going out on his leash. I mean, he'd be pretty excited to not go out on a leash. It's just that's the compromise that we reached. So Brutal Purple is another one that is in the Kickstarter 6 set that you can currently add by the Pledge Manager. I think they haven't locked that down, right? I feel like I would have noticed if the Pledge Manager was locked down. But I am epically unobservant at times. Guess I should have, well, maybe that's just going to be the same color. I suspect that this is not really well shaken. Could be wrong, but I do not believe it was that transparent color. And do my double checking. Zachariah's cat's favorite is Let's Go, because that means it's going upstairs for snuggle lap time. Ella doesn't wait for me to initiate snuggle lap time. It is initiated for me. Alright, that's got a little more body, but perhaps I need to start with a color that is a little... If this were just me at home painting, well, I mean, I am at home, but you know what I mean. I would just, paint 4 coats and wait for it. In between, but I will put a coat of something else down that's more opaque and then go over it and see how we do with that. I see that there is an additional layer I did not consider. So, do I have 2 layers touching that are the same? I was going to go ahead and make his bridge of his nose this color too. What should this color be? You know what? It is going to be the same, I think, for the sake of expediency. Or I will make it the red that I'm using for the coverage and cheat a little. I don't know if cheating is in the spirit of making a cool tiki. Then what color? I feel like I want to use some of the yellows and stuff up there. I was trying to decide whether to make his adorable little toenails this color or tie it in with one of the upper colors, and I think I will do that. But we'll see. Having yellow down low is gonna be attention drawing, and that's not necessarily compositionally what I want to have happen. Well, let's see. Let me just double check where we are time-wise. Yes, I probably will not. Shocking no one. I probably will not get this finished today. I was kind of hoping, but clearly it's not going to happen. But for anyone who came in a bit later, this figure is Mako the Tiki Shark. This is available on Reaper's website right now. I don't know. Does anyone know if they've arrived at the UK hub? I forgot to try to check that. If they haven't, they are on the way on a boat. And it's a charity fundraiser for victims of the Maui wildfires. Actually, I was going to do that a bit differently. This section may not get done until next time, but I mean, we would all have to die of shock if I managed to paint this in one day, right? We all know the only way I can paint a miniature in one day, or one Twitch session, is monochromatic. And it's coming up. Monochromatic miniature time is Halloween, fast approaching. I have not picked anything out yet. There is if you go on the Reaper site, you can't get the ghoulie bag yet. I think it's the 3rd or the 4th. Orders starting that day will be eligible for the ghoulie bag. I don't know if that looks like a Primo monochrome mini. So if you have any suggestions for a monochrome mini, I haven't done a sepia tone, so even though like a cowboy isn't very Halloweeny, I guess. Maybe is there a way to make a Halloween cowboy? I don't know. Or well, Victorians can be Halloweeny. I mean, they were super into like seances and all that kind of stuff. So maybe that's a possibility. Sepia monochrome Maldrakar. We have faith in you. Yeah, you're hilarious. You're very hilarious. Also, wouldn't Maldrakar be like the worst one for being monochrome? That's the one with all the heads, right? Mako is not as yet showing in stock for the UK, but my understanding is that it is on the way. Yes, so Neat Pete was asking what day is this show. I paint Mondays, so Reaper time is central, so from 3 to 5 on Mondays. But if you want something every day, if you come a bit earlier at 11:30, Anne paints Monday through Friday. And Anne is the person who designed this paint line and most of these paints. Then Wednesday, when Anne finishes up, which I think is like around 1:30, you will get Miniatures Den with Luca, who's an Italian painter. 2 to 4 Central Time. I went to my time. Queenie's like, oh my God, I make her work so hard. Just make Maldrakar very, very high light, dark contrast when you do her in sepia. And that is the trick with monochromatic. Did I put out any paint? Yes, I did. So, well, yeah, I'll go ahead and do that part now. Just a little. And then we will call it a day, and I'll be back next week, which is not yet Halloween, but it is Canadian Thanksgiving, so maybe I'll have to do something for that. Maybe I'll have to, I don't know if I have any of the Thanksgiving miniatures lying around, but I wonder if there's time to make an order. I'll paint some. Well, we don't. The Canadian Thanksgiving doesn't really involve the, Mayflower people, because that was way further south. We do have all the turkey and pie and things. So I'll have to remind myself what the Reaper Thanksgiving-ish miniatures are. Wait, I was wondering. Yes, no, that is the one I wanted. Oh my gosh, these layers. You know, the various rings, like a bullseye or something, are confusing to me. Do I have any white left? Do I have any yellow left? These are a little more tropical, but plenty of tropicality left to go. Why is Canadian Thanksgiving on a different day? What started it? Uh, it was, I think, like after the war, after World War. Now I don't remember if it was one or two. Um, they did a day of Thanksgiving, and then like it didn't happen every year for a while, but then they like circled back to it. I think it's a month earlier because it gets cold up there faster, so harvest time is like now instead of a bit later, or at least it was. It's not getting cold there as fast, but I think it's great. Like that was one of the hardest things about moving to America because you guys have this like introvert marathon from Thanksgiving through to January 2nd. You got all these events and your family stuff. And Canadian Thanksgiving is like early October. Then you got a nice long break before you got to see your family again at Christmas. It's a much better system, in my opinion. So that is Mako the Tiki Shark. And if I can figure out what I did with him, and I don't have any paint on my hands, this is the new mini of the month for October. And it is scrolled away, so I totally do not remember his name. He's a hobgoblin from the Scarneck? I don't know. I get sets of miniatures before they have names, so he's like a hobgoblin with an axe in my world. Can I make the light better? I feel like the light could be better, but so he's very cranky. I actually do not know what your Cardag, what material it's in. Do you know if it's a Bones USA or a print Quindy? My guy was a print for sure, but I think he was a master. So, Daka Flocka Flame. In the spirit of international goodwill, I will stuff my face on both Canadian and American Thanksgiving. This is how I celebrate. It's like, oh, we can start doing pumpkin pie now, and then we can do some more pumpkin pie later. And then we can do some more pumpkin pie at Christmas. It's a good bargain. Although the place I used to go that would do that had a sort of turkey dinner on the month, like on the menu all the time, closed, and now I have to come up with some other answer. Quindy is pointing out that all of the minis of the months for 2023 have been and will be prints, which is probably something I should have known and maybe did know and then forgot. And I think it'd be really hard to do a mold. I think John was saying it'd be really hard to do a mold with his little pointy teeth. Because his mouth, like, I don't know if you can see it, but he's got a little tongue in there and everything. You can see it in the big picture. But, so there's some neat details on him. And that also means he's like one piece. So, just nothing to assemble. I always enjoy that because I am very bad at the assembling. So, all right, I'm going to let Quindy find us a raid so that you can keep enjoying hobby fun. And I'll come back next week. We'll either paint that guy or a panda owl bear or Canadian Thanksgiving. Maybe we'll just pretend he's... This is what turkeys look like in Canada. They're iridescent. It's great. You should visit. Stay away from the geese, though. Those are not nice. All right, so it looks like we're gonna raid Quantum Minis. Say hi, spread the Reaper love, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.